Hello everyone and welcome back to another Pony and Wolf Productions video. My name is visualbrony and as always here is a lovely list of those lovely people who keeps this channel alive with their support on Patreon. If you want to support the channel then there's a lovely link down in the description, and this segment has become so lovely that I simply love it. Okay, now let's get into what we are doing today. Let's bring out my phone, and today we are reading a Twilight Sparkle story by Obsolescence. Okay, this is a bit interesting because it has Discord as a picture. We will see about this. So I guess I'll have to get my Discord voice on, and oh my god, I've got the hiccups. And as always, I will also remind you in this segment, if the big button under this video is still red, that means that you have not yet subscribed to Pony and Wolf Productions and will not receive updates about our newest releases. So what are you doing? Press it! Blah, blah, blah. Once upon a time, there was a purple pony by the name of Twilight Sparkle. We were quite neutrally associated, her and I. Before the events of this story, at any rate. Oh, there'd been a few tense moments in our relationship, what with me fiddling with her friend's fragile grasp on sanity and dismantling the fabric of reality, but I prefer to think that was all in the past. Let bygones be bygones, I've always said. And I usually mean it too. Mostly. How then did we become mortal enemies? Sworn to oppose each other in all things. Well, it's really quite simple. She, did something to me. Something so terrible that it pains me even now to retell it for the sake of your meager pleasure. I shouldn't, really. I wouldn't. I couldn't! But I will. Just for you. It was on a routine visit to Fluttershy's cottage to shoot the breeze and catch up on the buzz. And also to talk. Fluttershy and I were doing that rather often, you see, what with our newly forged friendship. It wasn't a particularly exciting way to spend time together, compared to bending natural laws and breaking legal ones, but I've always been one to sacrifice for my friends. Enter our villain, Twilight Sparkle. Well, no, actually, enter me into Fluttershy's cottage. Twilight was waiting for me there, as it turned out. As soon as I swam through the door, I saw her, staring at me with her freakish purple eyes. That should have been my cue to run for the hills. Or at least, the valleys. But I was so young and naive last Thursday, and like the fool that I was, I did not try to escape. It was to be my most grievous mistake.
Ah, hello, my dear Twilight,
I said, greeting her with a customary pie to the face.
I don't suppose you know where Fluttershy is?
Twilight wiped the cherry filling from her face and glared quite angrily at me.
Fluttershy's in the kitchen,
she growled, gritting her teeth. She took a deep breath and masked her baseless hatred for me behind a smile.
She wanted to make some snacks for the interview. Interview?
I asked quizzically.
An interview, you say? For whom?
A camera appeared in my paws, entirely of its own accord.
I'm excellent at conducting them, you know. You merely have to say the word and I'll...
It's for you, said Twilight with obviously malicious glee. You see, I've been planning to write an essay on the history of Equestria, and I realized that some of the most ancient history of Equestria actually falls under the period of your reign. And blah 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 blah. Too late, I realized I'd been set up. Somehow it seemed Twilight had manipulated my good friend Fluttershy into condoning an insufferably boring interview with me. This too might have been a good time to make a break for it, but at precisely that moment Fluttershy trotted out with a plate of warm gingerbread ponies. And I do so love her gingerbread ponies. I'm really sorry that I didn't tell you Twilight would be here, said Fluttershy, caring and kind as always. But she was well, she did say it would be an important breakthrough for equestrian history, and you told me earlier that you like to talk about yourself, so I just thought...
No, Fluttershy,
I told her, tipping the tray of deliciously warm gingerbread cookies into my gullet.
Don't blame yourself for this one. I understand perfectly that you did your best to look out for my interests, and that it was all Twilight's fault. Blah 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 blah,
said Twilight indignantly. Or something very much like that at any rate. I can't say what it was for certain. I don't pay much attention to undue slander against my person.
Oh,
said Fluttershy, looking down at her hoofs.
Well, I wouldn't say that exactly, but, well, it seems very important to her research, and I was just wondering if maybe you would be willing to, you know.
She looked up at me with her pleading puppy dog eyes and, well, honestly, how am I supposed to refuse those? It was clear that Twilight had utterly outmaneuvered me by that point, and there would be no escape from her fiendish designs. Checkmate. Yahtzee. Bingo. With the greatest apprehension, I stretched myself out on Fluttershy's couch and steeled myself for the worst. I was well aware of the horrors I would face at cruel Twilight's hoofs, but for dear Fluttershy's sake I remained calm.
Yes, all right,
I said in a manner much befitting my status as a victim.
Let's get this over with, then.
Thank you, Discord,
said Fluttershy, smiling radiantly at me.
Excellent,
said Twilight, a sinister glint shining in her eye. She took out her notepad, instrument of torture that it was, and cleared her throat.
Remember, Discord, this is going to be used for academic purposes. Every pony has a story to tell, and it's important that these stories are recorded so they can be remembered. I want to be able to tell your story here, so at least try to be serious about it.
You can see how Twilight was an expert at her craft. She didn't begin the torture immediately, but started first with a barrage of insults and hurtful words. I tried to resist for as long as I could. Oh, how I tried.
Yes, well, you can take those stories of yours and shove them right.
But I remembered that Fluttershy was present, and it wouldn't do to use such foul language where she could hear me.
Up an award-winning essay, for which you will receive condemnation, I'm sure.
Twilight narrowed her ghoulishly purple eyes at me.
I think you mean commendations.
I do not.
It was unwise of me, I'll admit, to provoke her when I was at her tender mercy. But surely you can see that I was cornered, helpless, afraid. My bitingly sharp wit was merely my final effort to defend myself against her schemes. In the end, though, it did not save me.
Question 1,
she said, scribbling down something dry and academic on her notepad.
Could you please state your name?
My face grew pale and my body contorted from sheer, unrelenting dullness. A deep breath to gather my wits and push my pelvis back into position.
For Fluttershy,
I reminded myself.
Discord, spelled with a D.
There, Discord,
said Fluttershy, patting my paw.
You can do it. I believe in you.
Twilight hummed, scribbling again in her notepad. She grinned wide, clearly enjoying the horrible boredom she was causing me.
See, that wasn't so bad. Now question 2.
It went on like that for at least 15 minutes. My mind grew hazy from dry professional language and rote historical recitation. Pointless questions flowed without cessation, beating down my mental defenses and shattering my will. It threatened even to render me sane. But through the mind-numbing haze of tedium, I held onto a single, searing thought.
Twilight Sparkle will pay.
By daring to interview me, Twilight had created a very powerful enemy. One who would not rest until she had suffered at least as much as I had. With this single, abominable act, Twilight had sealed her fate. She had unwittingly given me, the Great Discord, an insatiable hunger for vengeance. And for tacos later, if Fluttershy felt up to eating out. But mostly vengeance. Mostly. Hello and welcome back to Comment Time of the Visual Pony, where I'll remind you that you can support Pony and Wolf Productions through the links down in the description below. Every dollar helps as needed and very much appreciated, and it helps to keep the lights on around here. And now let's get into the meat of the story, because the battery of this laptop is almost running out. And by the way, charging that laptop also is covered by the Patreon money. So yeah, just saying. So I must say, I love this story. It's actually, from what I just saw, it's a prequel to something. I might go ahead and read the other one as well. So basically it's a sequel to this. And yeah, let me know what you think, because I can totally agree that being interviewed like this is boring as fuck if the interviewer doesn't make it interesting, you know? I've only been interviewed, you know, aside from job interviews, I think once or twice in my life. No, thrice. And at least one of those times the interviewer was like Twilight, sitting there with a list of questions and just rattling them off, and I was like, dude, please at least make that slightly interesting, because right now I'm almost falling asleep here. Okay, and now with this I will release you from my boring voice and tell you that I hope that this story, as always, finds you well in body and mind. Hello and welcome back to another Pony and Wolf Productions video, my friends. My name is Visual Pony, and here is once again a list of those lovely people on Patreon who keeps this channel alive. If you want to support this channel, then there's a link down in the description below, or you could become a channel member. You get awesome perks with that. And now, let's see, what are we reading today? Now, let's bring up my phone and see. Okay, today we are reading First Bat's Problems, written by Samey90, or Sammy90? It's basically, his name is written Samey90. So I think Samey90. Also, as usual, I will remind you that if that big button under the video is still red, that means you have not yet subscribed to Pony and Wolf Productions and will not be notified about our newest releases. I know I'm annoying, and I know that was overly dramatic, but I know you love it. I am the knight. Ponyville looks beautiful in the evening. Well, it's even more beautiful at night, but unfortunately shops are usually closed then. Apparently the shop owners in Equestria didn't notice a growing number of ponies of my kind yet. That, or they don't consider us good clients. I'm not a marketing specialist, but I guess it'll soon change. We're a large target, and even though we have strange wings and fangs, we also have money. And, as my cousin likes to say, pecunia non olet. I walk down the almost empty street. It'd be faster if I flew, but I don't want to attract any pony's attention. While I know that there's nothing wrong in what I'm going to do, I still feel a bit ashamed. I think it's the right word. When I don't talk and when my wings are tucked by my sides, many ponies think I'm a Pegasus. But if I suddenly took off, the fillies would probably start to run away to their parents, who'd start to chase me with torches and pitchforks. No, I'm overreacting. It's been 1004 years after the princesses defeated Discord and we are in Equestria, the heart of the civilization, a country of free ponies, where you can be whoever you want, where you can marry a griffin, eat hay on Fridays, and where you can even conjure a pimped-out castle in the middle of the town. There are no longer torches and pitchforks here. Okay, there's still some prejudice. Nasty looks, whispers, such stuff. It's kinda like with zebras. We look and behave different, so some ponies think we're up to no good. Luckily, the more they know us, the less whispers I hear. Hey, I even was at a party with Berry Punch recently. The same Berry Punch who thought that Zecora was going to foal-nap her daughter. Well, I'm not sure if she noticed that my fangs are showing when I talk, but she laughed loudly when I convinced her that I don't eat foals because they're too fat and I'm on a diet. Well, that whole blood drinking is actually a legend, but it's sometimes better when they do fear us. Also, it makes for great jokes. Speaking of foals, I meet those 3 kids on my way. Well, meet is a bad word. The orange one has to break hard to avoid colliding with me. The fact that there's a wagon with her 2 friends attached to her scooter doesn't make it easier. Hi girls, I say when they skid to a halt, inches from me. How's your crusading? It seems that we're not as good at train spotting as we thought, says the orange one. I think her name is Scootaloo. She's eyeing my wings, interested. It's because there are too few trains in Ponyville. says the white one, Sweetie Belle.
If we could find a way to get more of them here.
Good idea,
Scootaloo exclaims.
I like trains.
Don't do that,
I say, laughing.
I don't think ponies in those trains would be happy.
Applebloom scrunches her face.
How did you get your cutie mark? It's a rather long story,
I reply.
and I have to go to the shop before it closes. Maybe we could buy something for you?
Applebloom asks. Before I could reply, they all exclaim,
Cutie Mark Crusaders Delivery Service! I'm sorry, but it's something I'd rather buy myself.
I say. Oh, Celestia, I'm blushing.
I hope they won't notice. Strange. That's exactly what Rarity said when I wanted to run an errand for her.
Sweetie Belle says.
She later brought home some package and hid it in her bedroom.
Let's find out what it is.
Scootaloo exclaims.
Cutie Mark Crusaders Detectives!
She flaps her wings and they leave me alone. I sigh with relief. Luckily, they didn't find out what I want to buy. It's kinda embarrassing. I can hardly admit to myself that I really want that. I'm a bat pony. My vision and hearing are better than any other ponies. I have fangs, I have leathery wings, my irises look weird, I sleep all days and fly at nights. Full napping little fillies. Well, scratch the last thing. I don't eat fillies, though I don't mind some meat in my diet, which consists mostly of fruit anyway. And speaking of scratching, I often meet a certain DJ when I wander around the town, enjoying the view. She also doesn't mind that I'm a bat pony, as she says, nocturnal creatures must stick together. Nocturnal, yeah. As you can see, I have a reputation to maintain. But it's so hard when you're nocturnal and warm-blooded at the same time. Oh, I can imagine what my mother will say.
A proper bat pony shouldn't look like that. When I was your age.
And so on. You know, Mom is a traditionalist. She's a vegetarian and she actually can pronounce her W's correctly, but it's all about the impression. Bat ponies are not supposed to look cute. We're supposed to be scary and intimidating, possibly bloodstained. Due to the mindset changes, blood may be artificial. I, of course, don't care about all that. My mane is quite colorful for a bat pony. I don't speak with an accent. I sometimes walk out during the day. I even started to faint when I see blood, though I quickly stopped. I work as a nurse, night shifts only, so it would be weird. So apart from fangs, I'm just like any other pony. I can do everything other ponies do. Then why am I so ashamed of this? Total humiliation. Even though it's entirely functional. The nights here are cold. What can I do about that? That wouldn't be a problem if I was spending them flying, but I often have to sit still for hours when the patients are asleep and nothing happens. There's nothing wrong about that. But on the other hoof, I'm the knight. I look stupid. I stand in front of the door. I can still run away from there. But then I wouldn't be able to sleep for the whole day, thinking how I chickened out at the last moment. My bat pony pride would suffer even more than if I did what I want to do. Sighing, I push the door open. The interior of the shop is warm and cozy. But for me it feels like a rat-infested dungeon of some ancient castle. My bat pony genes tell me that rats are actually quite tasty, but I definitely don't want to check that. I exhale, bracing myself for the worst. "Good evening, madam," says the sales pony. He smiles widely at me, so I smile back nervously. He's unfazed by my fangs. For a moment we just stand there, grinning like two idiots. "Seriously, this is getting awkward. How can I help you?" he asks finally. Upon hearing those 5 words, I feel like the world collapses on my head. That's my moment of truth. I can't run away now. But if I reply to him, I'll lose a part of my identity. Other bat ponies will laugh at me. My mother will disown me. "You're lucky. We were going to call it a day," he says. I silence him with a frantic gesture. He probably sees my confusion. I take a step back. If he bursts into laughter, I'm gonna die of shame. "Madam," he says, "there's nothing to be ashamed about. You're actually the 3rd bat pony who came here this week."
What?
I look at him in disbelief.
Really? Bad ponies like me here? Buying...
You're not the only one whose hoofs get cold at night, he explains. We just got a new delivery, so you can choose whatever you want.
Oh, I already know what I want, I say, looking at the shelves. Do you still have those cute socks with pink and violet stripes? I saw them on display and I think they'll suit my mane.
Hello and welcome back to Common Time with Visual Pony, where I will remind you that you can support Pony and Wolf Productions through the links down in the description below. Every dollar helps is needed and very much appreciated and helps to keep the lights on around here. And you want to keep the lights on around here, right? Because without lights it means there's no electricity, and without electricity I cannot record. And now let's get into the meat of the story, because I am certainly not the Micro Machines man. Okay, guys, I love this! I so friggin' love this. You know, this is like the situation that I think every male brony ever had when they told their friends or family or whatever that they are bronies, that they like My Little Pony. It's this nervous moment, just like, yeah, but this is not what, you know, what's expected of me. That's not societally accepted or stuff, you know? You know, I'm a person, I don't fucking care. Seriously, I don't. People, I have always had hobbies or stuff, or dressed in a way that I feel comfortable, that I like, and if people look strangely at me, then I don't care. I was at a 3-star restaurant at some point when my father took me, and he wanted to teach me about all the different wines and what wine goes with what dish and whatever. He was horrified when I came in a leather jacket and a t-shirt instead of a suit. And that I ordered a beer to my fish instead of white wine. I detest white wine, just telling you. So, yeah, I don't care. I will do what I think is right. So, yeah. Sincerely yours, Visual Pony, and I hope that this story finds you well in body and mind. Let me know in the comments down below if there are stories like that in your life. Hello every pony and welcome back to another Pony and Wolf Productions video. My name is Visual Pony and today I'm recording from under a table. Yes, under a table. I'm trying to remove all that echo, but I can already hear that this will not work very well. So I'm not actually sure if I will use this recording. You know, stuff like this is actually one of the woes of being a YouTuber. Anywho, let's get into the meat of the story and... let me actually tell you what we are going to read. The read today is I Didn't Mean to Marry Him, I Swear by Silver Shadows. And as always, here is a lovely list of those lovely people who help keep this channel alive by their monthly donations. And hey, their stuff actually helps me to keep eating and, you know, pay rent and not live in a homeless shelter. So maybe check it out if you want perks like high-quality MP3 downloads of all of my stuff. First and last chapter. It was a lovely evening in Ponyville. The main 6 were hanging out in Princess Twilight's castle to have a slumber party and, with it, fun. Much to Twilight's delight. Twilight rarely had slumber parties, nor saw her friends as often anymore. All 6 of them were too busy living their lives as who they were meant to be, although they hung out as often as possible. Rarely did all 6 of them meet unless there was some threat. Pinkie, the party planner, was in charge of planning the games they would play. Applejack was in charge of creating dinner for all 6 of them. Rarity created lovely decorations for the castle in celebration. Rainbow Dash had made sure it was going to be a clear sky that night, which had taken some approval from the new weather manager as it was supposed to be raining. They had only decided to allow clear skies lest Rainbow decided to attack them, something she looked like she was planning to do according to her facial expression. Fluttershy left all her critters with enough food for the night. Twilight made sure that no pony else was in the castle, not wanting anything to disturb their time together. She easily persuaded Starlight to have a sleepover with Trixie and Spike to have Guys Night with Discord and Big Mac. Twilight looked at all of her friends and gave them a smile.
Thank you for putting this much effort. It wasn't necessary. I would have enjoyed it even if we went on a picnic or just sat down and spoke to one another.
Sure, Cube, Applejack began.
We've been planning this for months with ya. So it's once in a while that much.
Rarity nodded in agreement.
We do love being here with you. You seem awfully busy with your duties these days. Do need some more spa days to relax, darling.
Rainbow rolled her magenta eyes.
Enough with the boring, sappy stuff. Pinky, what's the first activity?
Pinky bounced up and down.
Classical good old truth or dare. I'll go first. But first,
Pinky said with dead seriousness in her voice,
I want all of us to pinky promise that they will answer any truth questions with absolute honesty and do any dare that is within our power.
All 6 of them Pinky promised, although 5 of them knew that the 6th was being overdramatic with the game. She looked at all of them one by one, pretending to think very hard on who to choose.
Who to choose? Twilight Sparkle!
Pinky shouted suddenly.
Truth or dare?
Rolling her eyes once more, Rainbow said,
She's gonna choose truth again.
Applejack shot her a quick glare, warning her not to ruin the games they were playing. Rainbow protested.
What? It's true. She always chooses truth.
Twilight replied after getting slightly annoyed with Rainbow.
Dare.
Then the logical part of her mind started to function again, and she realized that she had just chosen Dare from Pinkie Pie. Pinkie Pie pulled out an egg from her mane.
Excellent.
She cracked it open and a strip of paper fell out. Pinkie quickly read the paper before managing to put the paper back into egg. The egg reattached itself and disappeared into her mane. Twilight raised an eyebrow.
What's in that paper? Well, Rainbow and I came up with a super duper dare just in case you chose dare. By the way, Rainbow, you owe me 5 bits since Twilight chose dare.
Rainbow groaned and hoofed the bits over. Pinkie put the bits in her mane as well.
Twilight Sparkle, I, Pinkie Pie, dare you to get the reject box of letters, choose one without looking, accept it, and do whatever the letter says.
Twilight gaped.
What? But I clearly rejected them for a reason. A dare is a dare, unless you're going to break a pinky promise.
Pinkie said with clear mischief and a hint of warning. The alicorn knew that she didn't have a choice. Facing Pinkie Pie's wrath was worse than any possible thing she could ever agree with. She teleported the reject box from her work table and made it pop up on the table. Pinkie decided to mix the reject letters really quickly with one of her hoofs, while one of the other hoofs blindfolded Twilight with a napkin found on the table. Afterwards, Twilight chose a random letter with her hoof and took the blindfold off. Pinkie snatched it away from her.
Let's see what Twilight's gonna accept.
She read the letter.
Dear Twilight Sparkle, it is within my firm belief that we are bound by the stars to become married. I asked all of my servants and they all agreed willingly that we are destined to be together and live happily. I'd prefer to live in your castle so we won't have to see those other annoying princesses. Twilight, you're my stars and your hero was clearly plenty of fame. I'm more famous. We are fated to be together, married under the dazzling stars. We will share fame together and since we're both royalty, we will have many servants. I'm also the best. You should marry me in a week. Accept this. We are meant to be. Love, Prince Blueblood.
Pinkie looked up to see that every pony else blanched.
What? This is going to be so fun. Prince Blueblood and Twilight are gonna be married.
Twilight gulped.
Pinkie? I'll deliver the letter.
Pinkie said with a huge smile and failing to notice every pony else still gaping at the letter. She ran off and returned in an hour. Pinkie gave another huge smile to the still gaping ponies.
Prince Blueblood is super delighted, although he was being a bit of a meanie. He'll cheer up soon.
Twilight shook her head rapidly.
Pinkie, please go back and tell him that I didn't mean to accept the letter.
Pinkie began singing, not paying her any attention.
Twilight Sparkle's getting married.
Hello and welcome back to Common Time as Visual Pony, where I'll remind you that you can support Pony and Wolf Productions through the links down in the description below. Every dollar helps is needed and very much appreciated and helps to keep the lights on around here and me eating. So let's get into the meat of the story because I am kinda hungry right now and I kinda would like to go eat lunch. So, what do I think about this? Oh my word. Truth or Dare is actually, it can be really, really scary depending on who you're playing with. And Pinkie making
Twilight Mary Prince Blueblood? Oh my word, I'd rather be, sent to Tartarus for all eternity. Anyhow, that's all from me for now, and yeah. I am Visual Pony, I am signing off, and hope that this story, as always, finds you well in body and mind.
Hello and welcome back everyone to another Pony and Wolf Productions video. My name is Visual Pony and today we are reading the story Professional Courtesy, written by Rainbooms Inc. So, here is once again a list of the lovely people who keeps this channel alive with their monthly donations. Oh, you too can become a patron on Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you will, for example, get exclusive downloads of all these lovely MP3 files. Anyhow, there's also this big button under this video, and if for you it is still red, that means that you have not yet subscribed to this channel. And now let's get into the meat of the story. I am Visual Pony, and I know that I am annoying. Rendezvous. It was spring in Canterlot. The unicorns had done their customarily thorough job of changing the seasons, and not a spot of snow remained, from the cobbled streets to the highest parapets of the castle. The trees that lined the streets and filled the gardens of Equestria's capital were already dotted with pale green buds, and crocuses were blooming between them. In all the city there was only one place where winter's chill still lingered. Unfortunately, it was in the palace's royal chambers. Luna's horn glowed as she gingerly pressed a piece of gauze to her flank, hissing in pain as the disinfectant it was soaked in came into contact with her wound. Across the room, Celestia sighed. "Come on, sister. This is getting ridiculous." Luna didn't even look up. "I'm not speaking to you." "Yes, you are. You just did. Now will you please let me take a look at that? You know I've studied healing magic." The Princess of the Moon did not look up at that. "So much as to twitch in my direction and I will murder you." Her voice was as cold and calm as the sunless seas of the moon. "That's uncharitable of you, sister." Celestia stamped a hoof in frustration. "This wasn't even my fault." "Not your fault? Not your fault?" Luna repeated as she snapped another length of gauze taut. "It's entirely your fault! It was your stupid idea in the first place!" Celestia rolled her eyes. "And it was a good idea. I can hardly be blamed because it didn't turn out exactly the way you hoped." "Oh, Luna, you need to get out more." The younger princess's voice was a high-pitched mockery of her sister's. "I know there's a lovely little moon goddess 2 planes away. I'm sure you'd have so much in common." "I do not sound like that." "Whatever. The point is, you were the one so keen on me meeting her. You were the one who practically shoved me through the portal. You were the one who insisted I be corporeal because, quote, you'll want every sense when you get there, unquote. And you are the reason I came back with an actual arrow in my actual flank." She shot her injured hindquarters a mournful look. "I'm just lucky the shrieking harpies following your friend around were so much slower than she was." Celestia eyed the offending missile where it lay on the floor, still stained with her sister's blood. "That's what I mean. Deities from that plane don't generally shoot at their guests. You must have offended her somehow." "Or," Luna ground out, "you forgot to take note of the fact that the playmate you were setting me up with was a murderous lunatic." "Nonsense." Celestia tossed her head, ethereal mane rippling. "I'm sure I would have remembered something like that." "Then why don't we check the book?" Luna demanded as she pressed the last piece of her bandage into place. "I'm sure it would settle your senility." "Senility?" Celestia's eyes narrowed. "What are you implying, sister?" "Nothing at all. I'm sure it's perfectly understandable, what with you being older than the universe and all." "I'm not older than the universe. I'm not even older than this universe." "Well, I wouldn't know, would I?" Luna shouted back. "I'm just your baby sister. I never get to do anything except get arrows shot at me by your cronies."
I didn't want you to get shot with anything. It's hardly my fault you can be so irritating it drives people to murder. So I suppose I shouldn't be surprised. Just get the damn book, Luna said from between clenched teeth. Fine. Celestia spun on her heels and stomped to the bookshelf that leaned unobtrusively in one corner of her private chambers. The book in question was, in fact, many books. More than 24 volumes bound in ancient, cracked leather. They were secured to the shelves with a chain of cold iron onto which was etched in ancient writs of sealing and binding, and over which, once a century, the names of dead empires were spoken. The chain flew open as Celestia approached, and the Princess of the Sun snatched the relevant volume, flipping it open with a grimace. She hated consulting the Telecomnicon. It just felt so melodramatic. On the first page, inscribed in runes that would sear unschooled eyes to the back of the skull that housed them, were the words A. L. Hazret, Messenger Service, serving the celestial and chthonic spheres since neither rain nor snow, nor the fiery tears that swallowed lost Carcosa shall stay us about our business. All right, here it is, she murmured as she flipped through the roaringly stained pages. Let's see here. Death? No, none of them. Delight? Dear me, how old is this edition? Demeter? Close, but no. Desire? No. Despair? Definitely not. She flipped over several more pages. What is wrong with that family? You're stalling, Luna said bluntly. I'm not. You can try to find her if you think it's so easy, Celestia snapped. I just need to get the hang of this damned alphabet. I know it's not D to E. She skipped over several hundred pages. D to O? No, that's not it either. A moment of backtracking later, she slapped a hoof against the page in triumph. Here it is, Goddess of the Moon. Luna glowered at her sister from across the room. Keep reading. Celestia's eyes flicked back and forth. She seems to have a lot in common with you. Young, headstrong, virginal. Ha! Luna snorted under her breath. Sibling to the sun. Really, there's no reason here why you shouldn't have gotten along like a house on fire. You just don't... Oh. Yes? Luna's grin was positively poisonous. Celestia glared at the page, then at her sister, then at the page again. Her jaw clenched. Say it, sister. Celestia only glared. Well, if you don't want to. Luna took a step closer. All right, Celestia snapped. So she's also the goddess of the hunt. It's a minor detail. Anyone could have missed it. The hunt, Luna said flatly. Yes. The hunt, as in, let's all get roaring drunks and go out and shoot at the first thing that looks unfamiliar. That kind of hunt. If you say so. Celestia's face was impassive. Does it say what she hunts, generally? Not in any great detail. There's some mention of a golden stag. Really? An exotic animal with 4 hoofs. And you didn't see any reason why sending me to meet her? Luna reared back, displaying wings, horn, and hoofs to full effect. Could possibly end badly? Yes, all right. Celestia shut the book with a snap. It yelped. I get it. It was an oversight on my part. But you can see, can't you, how it could have worked? We could try again. I'm sure there's another moon spirit out there without quite the same conflict of interest. And you do need to get out more. Celestia? Yes? I am not speaking to you. Luna stalked from the room, slamming the door behind her like a midwinter gale. Celestia sighed. Some days she just couldn't win.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Common Time with Visual Pony, where I remind you that you can support Pony and Wolf Productions through the links in the description down below. Every dollar helps is needed and very much appreciated and helps to keep the lights on around here, and I can fuel my car and use it as a sound booth. I'm in a parking garage again, and I can hear a group of, I think, early 20s people who I have seen for the last few days. They seem to literally come here and do something for hours on end, so I'm not feeling the, safest right now, especially since it's getting dark outside and it's 10 in the evening, so, all I have to say about the story, yes, Celestia, you should have read that entry about that moon goddess a lot more. It was very likely Artemis, and yes, that's the goddess of the hunt, and, Anyhow, sincerely yours, Visual Pony, and as always, I hope that this video finds you well in body and mind. Hello every pony and welcome back to another Pony and Wolf Productions video. My name is Visual Pony and today we are reading the story Swooped by Oddshot. I'm not entirely sure if I've read this story yet, I will have to check on the channel. But it seems kinda unfamiliar and yet familiar, you know that kind, Anyhow, let me show you a list of those amazing people who keep this channel alive and who keep me eating, able to pay my rent and my car payments and, my internet, utilities and all that good stuff, because I kinda like food and I kinda like my apartment. I like to eat and not living in a homeless shelter. Anyhow, let's get into the meat of the story after I've reminded you that below this video there is this amazing big button, and if it is still red for you, that means then you have... okay, I'll leave that in. That means that you have not yet subscribed to Pony and Wolf Productions, and you will not be notified about our newest releases. Amid a cold winter, before technology. She ran. Her hoofs beat a blazing trail through the winter snow. Crunching, the soft plumes erupted every which way around her. A small part of her prayed the spray would slow it down, even just a little bit. Soundlessly, the winged shadow of the beast touched at her side. Her eyes were already too wide. She pivoted, turning her head in the clear sun, turning for a new avenue of escape. Her heart continued to pound at her, yearning for a reprieve from the endless dead sprint she'd heaved her lungs into. Breath after breath, her world quivered, begging her to slow, to give in to the exhaustion steadily creeping in. The snow was no place for the young pony, just barely a few moons into marehood. Her wicker basket of berries was long forgotten. It hadn't been worth the risk. Now she'd be forgotten too. Her muzzle dipped upward briefly, searching the sky fruitlessly for the gaze of the hawk-eyed monster. It had spotted her through the leafless tree line, chased her into this open snowfield, and had fiendishly blocked her in with each curving shadow. It was too high to see, and she shook a patch of snow across her withers as she sent another wave of fresh snow flying. The shadow curved again, carrying on its hounding roll. Her eyes quaked between the land ahead and the shadow. Her eyes crossed it too late. It had been but a few hoofs wide in one moment, and now a ravenous biting lash of air scratched against her back. She screamed, stumbling. The shadow pulled away and she was left alone. She didn't stop. Tears poured freely as her muscles spasmed, twitching under the pressure of the now too long-drawn exertion. That had to have been a passing glance, a test of her remaining strength. The tears flowed faster than before, turning to a melting, scalding river that trudged through the snow just as evenly as her hooves. The tribe's stallions had been right. She should never have listened to her fellow tribesmares. In a few more moments, it would all be over. Cresting a final hill, her breath hitched suddenly. She barely managed to keep herself from sliding across the frosted land as she galloped down the snow-covered hill. The village forest was right there, and it was rife with cover. Energy filled her as she was brimming with aplomb. It wasn't over. Not yet. Casting out a yell, her shrill voice filled the land around her. Her vision was watery and she blinked hard, miraculously clearing it.
her muzzle listed down, her eyes sharpening fiercely until she'd put all her focus into the tree line. She could get there. Step by step she galloped, thunder cracks reaming through the land with abandon. She could make it. A yip of happiness crossed her. She wasn't but 100 hoofs away now. She idly took notice of the missing shadow. The freedom collapsed against her lungs. She looked to her fetlocks as the gap closed, then back up. With all of the strength and the will she had in her hoofs, she sprung forward. And then her hoofs crossed against nothing. A gasp tugged the remaining breath in her barrel as something yanked against her. A mellow pain thunked across both her forelegs and hind legs. Her back was flooded with warmth. Too sweet smell crossed against her, melding against her hot breath and sweat. She flailed, crying once more. She looked for help. The earth waved her goodbye. Into the air, she began to soar. Her eyes widened like empty clay bowls, and her flailing began to slow. The gravity of the world pulled her away, but it did not return her to where she belonged, to the comfort of the home where she'd spent all her life. The trees of the hidden village swayed, unaffected by her plight. She watched as the snow and her sea of tracks fell away, replaced by the molten, flapping shadow of two ponies. A Pegasus had caught her. Her eyes tracked upwards, but she could see nothing of the brute. She could do nothing. Her heart continued to beat tremendously, pumping for nothing but her own fear. Did she fight? She looked down and away. The tears and fight left her. Shivering, the only thing she could find comfort in was the unassuring darkness of her closed eyes and the acrid warmth draped across her spine. She knew better than to trust that touch, but it was all she had now. At least she wouldn't perish to the cold. Above, a pulsing snort shook her. She curled into herself as best she could. She couldn't fool herself. This was no better than being clenched in the teeth of a timber wolf. After a long, silent journey, she opened her eyes. The flapping of wings was still present, and the whistling of air was exasperant by the fatal fall below. She was provided an inadvertent view of the world from above. It was beautiful, but it wasn't distraction enough. Suddenly the world turned belly up, and she saw the sun. Clouds surrounded her, and she gasped with shock as she plunged through one. A stray hoof threaded itself through the pearly white surface, and she watched in awe as it split like torn linen. It was cool, moist, and fluffier than she'd ever imagined. Splashes of clouds threw themselves up around her, and she felt her innards fall back into place. She closed her eyes, the sun shining against her face. She settled backwards into the warmth, but stayed frozen. The rumbling snorts of the Pegasus thronged along her, and the young mare squeezed her eyes even tighter. Huffing and puffing, she heard its feathers shuffling, and then hoofs traced along her. She squirmed away, and a giggle wormed from below.
Wait,
Do you like mares, Earth Pony?
it wasn't a stallion. The tribe's mares had said that.
Because I do.
She swallowed and held her silence. In reply, teeth nipped at her nape. Her hind legs kicked out involuntarily, and she blushed. Meekly she squeaked out the start of a complaint. The bold Pegasus seemed to hear none of it. Soft murmurs swilled through her ears as the Pegasus' hoofs pulled her in, their coats blending together. A strange feeling crossed her heart, and it finally relaxed, beating gently. The warmth doubled across her body, and ever so slightly she began to unwrap herself. She slid her hoofs upwards and hooked over the forelegs twined around her. With each passing caress, more edges of a smile tipped over her muzzle. She'd been swooped.
Hello and welcome back to Common Time with Social Pony. I'll remind you that you can support Pony Wolf Productions through the links in the description below.
Every dollar helps is needed and very much appreciated and helps to keep the lights on around here and also, to keep me eating, keep my car payments and pay my rent. Also, now let's get into the meat of the story. I find this story kind of weird because, this Earth Pony Mare has basically been kidnapped and is now being, I don't even want to say what this Pegasus is doing with her, but it very much reminds me of that story that I read at one point where Celestia was basically becoming Chrysalis's dom. Anyhow, sincerely yours, Visual Pony, let me know what you think about this story in the comments down below, and as always, I hope that this story finds you well in body and mind.